Hello, coaches. Welcome back to another episode of Coach Better Spotlight. Today, I'm chatting with Anne-Marie Chow, middle school vice principal and English teacher at the United World College Southeast Asia East Campus in Singapore. This Spotlight episode focuses on how UWC has built a culture of coaching that incorporates both cognitive coaching and instructional coaching, and what makes those programs so successful on the East Campus. In the full-length podcast, we also discuss how coaches track data from coaching to measure success, the impact coaching has had on the leadership team, and how coaches can articulate that in schools where leaders are not on board, as well as how coaches can work towards pursuing a leadership pathway if that's the next step in their career. To hear the full episode, subscribe to Coach Better wherever you get your podcasts. Today's conversation is a window into the learning that happens inside the Coach Certificate and Mentorship Program. Wherever you are in building a coaching culture in your school, the coach will give you the strategies, skills, and tools you need to make coaching a success. This academic year-long online course and mentorship program will empower you to confidently apply instructional coaching strategies in any situation, from building a coaching program to having coaching conversations to being a leader in your school community. Registration for our next global cohort opens on the 21st of February and closes on the 14th of March. Find out more and join the waiting list at edurolearning.com/coach. All right, welcome back to another episode of Coach Better. Today, I am super excited, and I told Anne-Marie before we started the call that I've been thinking about this conversation all day to be chatting with Anne-Marie Chow from UWC Singapore. And I have listened to, known, heard about Anne-Marie for so long, and I feel like we haven't had a chance to really talk about your amazing world of coaching that you are doing individually and that UWC has going on. So I'm super excited to have this conversation with you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Okay, so let's get started and jump into a little bit about your journey in education. How did you get to the role that you're in right now?
Yeah, so right now I am Vice Principal of Academics in the middle school here at UWCSEA East. And yeah, it's not a role that I really expected that I would be in at this stage in my career. I was really happy coaching, and I had really felt like I found my niche there. I was coaching literacy in the middle school here for 6 years and just absolutely thrived in that environment. Before that, I was teaching grade 5, teaching grade 2, teaching grade 3 and 4, also middle school, all across Asia. I originally grew up in South America and always thought that I would head back to South America, but Asia came calling and it's just worked out. So I've been in Hong Kong, Indonesia, Mongolia, Taiwan, and now Singapore. So this is now year 10 in Singapore, and all of that time here at UWC, which has been fantastic. So 2 years ago, actually through, I think for many of us, some of those next steps in our journey come from disappointments. And so for me, there was a disappointment of not getting into a graduate school program that I had applied for and was excited about doing. And right on the tail of that disappointment came an opportunity for a K-12 leadership role as head of digital learning here at our campus. And that was really just a great moment for me in terms of thinking outside of the box that I had been so comfortably in, and looking at how I could expand my influential leadership in that role. So I gave it a go. I absolutely loved it. I would have been happy to do that job for several more years. And then this opportunity came up, and it was one that I had said a few years back that if that job ever came open, the vice principal of academics, that might be a fit for me. And so, actually, through some really, really useful coaching conversations with some of my colleagues and trusted mentors, I was able to think through what I had to offer for this job and giving that a go. And so here I am now in this leadership position and really loving it.
It's so exciting to hear of your own growth and your own journey from, where you started, where you thought you might be, and at where you are today. And that last piece you said, maybe it wasn't quite the last piece, but towards the end, you were talking a little bit about never feeling like you would move into this kind of position, and like making that transition, having those great coaching conversations and recognizing that this is where you can offer a lot. I think that's something, at least I feel, lots of people need to hear again and again. Like, you do have something to offer, and there is something that's drawing you to this role for a reason. And we don't always feel like that's legitimate. And so hearing that even you, very successful educator with such a wonderful journey, feels that way, I think is really empowering for others. So thank you for sharing that part of your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would just add that there's always an element of being a female in this profession and being very happy with what we're doing in the moment. And I don't think a lot of us think about next steps as
Yes.
much as some other of our colleagues might. And so it's often the male people in my life, whether that's my husband or my male colleagues, that are nudging.
Yes.
And it's just listening to those nudges. And for me, what's been more powerful, like I can ignore those nudges, but what's more powerful is when I sit down for a coaching conversation and really dig into who I am, what I have to offer, what the role is, what it would require, what I could contribute. And through those kinds of conversations, that's where I realize, oh, actually, I'm already doing a lot of things. And so for me as an instructional coach, realizing how much my practice was influential leadership, naming it for myself, and then obviously then that helps you name it for other people as well.
Yes. So the coaching conversation helps you own it instead of somebody else saying you should do this. You then are thinking, oh, I should do this. Mm-hmm. And that other piece you said about coaching, building leadership capacity and leadership skills, I've been talking about this for weeks now because I did this series of interviews called Women Who Lead, which I totally have to have you on that. That's another conversation after this. But my big takeaway from those like over 70 interviews that I did with successful women leaders is that the skills that you are learning and practicing as a coach are all skills that can serve you in a leadership capacity. And it was, maybe I kind of knew that in the abstract, or I would have thought that in the abstract, but then listening to every single person describe how, this particular skill or this particular skill is so essential in leadership. I'm like, oh, that's another coaching skill. That's another coaching skill. And I don't know how often we talk with our coaches about the skills that they're developing and refining in their coaching role and how well those skills can serve them in like a positional leadership position.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think part of where I'm finding so much, it feels a little bit too bold to say success, but that those moments where it's the end of the day and you're like, yeah, that was a good day. I had some challenging things, but we were able to listen to each other. We were able to make a plan together. We have some next steps, whether that's with parents, with students, with colleagues. And so much of that is grounded in coaching conversations with all of those people.
Yes, absolutely. So this is connecting me really nicely to our next question, which is something that I've asked of several other UWC educators. So I'm really curious to hear your perspective on this. And I know that UWC is very committed to coaching. You have cognitive coaching happening with all staff. And then you also have instructional coaching. And I don't know if the digital literacy is like part of the instructional coaching or its own kind of lens. how do those various models of coaching intertwine and support each other at the school? Because the one general word can cause a little bit of confusion when there's kind of different models in action at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that in pockets around the school, that the clarity around the two different models of cognitive coaching and instructional coaching is really there. And individuals are taking advantage of both of those kinds of coaching. And as a coachee, they're able to identify and say, I need a coaching conversation. Can you help me think through something? Or actually, there's this part of my practice that I'm not feeling so good about and I'd like to refine it. Can we do some coaching together? And so that's in pockets still. I think in the middle school, I would say that in my previous role, it was a literacy coaching role. And so I was really focused on working with the English department. And then that expanded over time with other departments, mostly with literacy, but then it kind of started blending into just general instructional coaching. And so the new role that we have now is an instructional coaching role. And so Sarah's working with all staff in their practice. And so that knowledge and culture of what does it mean to work with an instructional coach to improve your practice is growing across the middle school. Where cognitive coaching, like that's embedded. People know what that is. They know that when you want help thinking about something, you can have a cognitive coaching conversation, whether it's planning or reflecting on something. The thing I'm a little nervous about right now, quite honestly, is that because of COVID, we haven't continued with that professional learning around cognitive coaching. So for the past year and a half now, all of our new staff haven't gone through that cognitive coaching. So if they haven't come with it, and then we have staff that maybe only did 2 days of training or 4 days and haven't done the full 8 days of training. And so just looking at what does that mean for us in a sustainability piece. I am a very confident coach, but I am not trained to give the training on cognitive coaching. Like I don't have that skill set. And so with like right now, I work with a couple of middle leaders that are new to our school. And so their teachers and their teams all are familiar with cognitive coaching. And they're like, I'm supposed to have a coaching conversation, but I don't know how to do it. And so now we're kind of stepping back and saying, okay, well, what are the basics you need to know to be able to have this type of conversation? You might not have all of the training and all of the skill level. And so really focusing on paraphrasing and questions, right? Like those are the two pieces in cognitive coaching that we're working with. So that's kind of one piece. Another piece for me in terms of moving those pockets, we want to expand those pockets so everybody has a clear understanding of the two different kinds of coaching, but moving them to a point where people really can flow smoothly between the different models. And so one of the things I've noticed with some of my cognitive coaching conversations, is you get to a point where people, they've got a goal, they know what they want to achieve, but then they're really fuzzy about their next steps. What can they do tangibly to get there? And so helping lift that instructional coaching into the minds as like, oh, I know I can choose that. I've seen that happening. My colleague has done that. My team is doing that. And it becomes a little bit more fluent in people's thought process once they have their goals. So that's something I'm hoping that with Sarah as our instructional coach, that we can be building that culture of grabbing that as a great resource and a tool. And that's there for some people, but it hasn't yet permeated across for everyone.
What you just described so clearly, I know we talked about sustainability in terms of the challenge of COVID, but you actually, the way you describe coaching in the model at the school really shows this level of sustainability and growth that I think, I don't know, you flicked a switch for me. And I'm like, oh, this is how these two work together really well, because I love that image of everyone huge baseline of, and I know that there's a challenge right now, but generally speaking, everyone huge baseline of cognitive coaching. And we get to this point with cognitive coaching, and then we recognize, oh, now I need this other kind of coaching. And it just, the way you described it, sounds so natural to me and makes such a like clear picture for how you're using those two, ideally how you want to use those two together in your school. I think for others that are building a coaching culture may not have the established cognitive coaching, but has like pockets, like you say, because there are so many schools that have experience with cognitive coaching and maybe less so with instructional coaching. I can see how you could look at these two as almost like boats rising in the water. Like you bring them both, you can bring them both up.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just kind of connected to that, one of the support functions we name in our work here, which is connected to cognitive coaching, is consulting. And that sometimes in your work with individuals, they don't need a cognitive coach. They don't need an instructional coach. They just need some straight up advice and some consulting. And of course, we still try to structure that with choice. And so you might do this, you might do this, you might do this, or I've seen these examples, which one might work well for you. But one of the things I have found is by naming that with people I work with and saying, you know what, it sounds like right now it'd be really beneficial for you to have some consulting. Would you just like me to share some ideas with you? That's great in the moment, but what happens in the long run is then when I say, you know what, it sounds like it'd be great for us to have a coaching conversation about this, or I wonder if it would be good for us to go through some coaching work together. They know the difference, and they're beginning to see the difference because I've named there's this other thing sometimes as consulting. And so I think there's benefit in naming that for people. And so, I mean, I was just in a meeting last week and the individual was just like, yes, please, I need consulting right now. Just give me some advice. And we went through that. And then he thought which one he needed. And it was like, okay, so would it be beneficial for you to now do some coaching work with Sarah on this choice that you have? And so then it just becomes clearer for them what they're choosing for themselves.
Just hearing you talk about that in that way, I felt like a weight lifted off my chest, because I think this is the struggle with cognitive coaching, right? It has the word coaching in it. Everybody feels like they know what coaching means. The people doing the coaching really want to do the great job asking the questions. Like we go to the training and we hear the beautiful questions from the people who are so eloquent in their cognitive coaching style. And sometimes people just need some consulting. But if no one ever tells them that it's two different things, they want consulting and they ask for coaching. Mm-hmm. And that's not good, right? Or the person's trying to coach and they don't know to articulate consulting. And just the way you describe that, that's, to me, that's like a missing piece with cognitive coaching when it's not implemented as maybe thoroughly as is happening at UWC.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, I don't know if this was from one of the original trainers or from Stuart McAlpine, who was here at our school before, and is now working for Lego. He would always really clearly gesture with his body. And so he would give the choice in that moment and say, would you like some consulting? Would you like to continue coaching? And if they chose consulting, he would literally move his body and say, okay, I'm going to do some consulting with you now. And we would do that work. And then it's like, okay, we're good. Great. Back into coaching mode. And so just, again, that concrete visual of this is something different. And like you said, for the coach, if they don't name that for themselves, we sometimes are trying to consult through a paraphrase or through a question that's leading. And that's not beneficial either, because that's transparent. The coachee knows that. And it's like, you're just tell me the answer. Like, you know what I should do. Just tell me what to do. And then that lowers the integrity of the coaching process.
That little clip right there needs to be separate, because that is exactly it. And I think no one's trying to do the wrong thing when they get stuck in these situations, but it happens a lot. And I've done quite a lot of these conversations with teachers where I ask, what do you like about coaching? What's challenging about coaching? And, just to get their feedback. And that is always the number one thing that teachers will say is, and they don't phrase it exactly like you say, but when someone's trying to coach me when I just need help, like, I get it. I want to be coached. Here I am. I'm your willing person. But right now, this is not the time to use your coaching strategies when I just need this thing, whatever it is. And I think the way you articulated that is perfect. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you are ready to develop your coaching practice over the next academic year, please join us for the next cohort of The Coach. Wherever you are in building a coaching culture in your school, the coach will give you the strategies, skills, and tools that you need to make coaching a success. This academic year-long online course and mentorship program will empower you to confidently apply instructional coaching strategies in any situation, from building a coaching program to having a coaching conversation to being a leader in your school community. Registration for our next global cohort opens on the 21st of February and closes on the 14th of March. We facilitate only one cohort each year so we can offer individualized support for each participant. Now is your chance to be part of a global cohort of passionate and engaged learners, to leverage 40 weeks of in-depth coaching content with practical challenges to build your coaching skills, and to reflect on your practice for the entire academic year with a mentor. Become a certified Eduro Learning instructional coach today. Head over to edurolearning.com/coach to find out more. Here at Eduro, we provide customized online professional learning for educators at the intersection of technology, coaching, and leadership. Our mission is to empower the relentless learner in you to embrace your inner leader and make a bigger impact in your school setting. Join our Coach Better Facebook group and connect with us on social media at Eduro Learning for more great resources at the intersection of technology, coaching, and leadership. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode, and we'll see you next time.